Hey everyone, I am Danny. This is Wreck That Margin, and today I'm filming the first video in a new series I'm doing called Battle of the Books. Every month I'm going to pick two books that are similar enough to compare, but different enough to be an interesting comparison, and we're going to face them off. I'm going to be judging them on 5 key points: plot, setting, characters, tone, and conclusion, and the winner will get nothing, but it'll be fun to talk about books in a new and different way. Today, I'm going to be comparing books that are retellings of classic tales. The books I've chosen are Alice by Christina Henry, which is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, and Alias Hook by Lisa Jensen, which is a retelling of Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. First, let's talk about the plot. Alice has been in an insane asylum for a while for a traumatic event that happened to her years ago at the hands of the White Rabbit. She doesn't remember who this is, but one day the insane asylum catches on fire. She escapes and has to make her way through this place called the Old City to find the White Rabbit to confront him while running away from a monster called the Jabberwock. The plot moved very slowly. I wasn't really concerned about the monster. I didn't really care about the White Rabbit. I just was very ambivalent towards the whole thing. For Alias Hook, the plot is Captain Hook is stuck on Neverland. He's unable to die. Every time he sustains a horrible wound, he kind of gets magicked back to perfect health, and he has to once again play this game with Peter Pan and his new group of lost boys, and he's very sick of it. He just wants out. He's been at this island for hundreds and hundreds of years. He really has no say in anything that happens. He feels like a captive, and Peter Pan is his nemesis. So Captain Hook has to try and get off of Neverland, but there doesn't seem a way to do it without dreaming yourself out of it. So out of those two plots, I enjoyed Alias Hook a lot more. I found it more compelling, and there was a lot more intrigue that moved the plot forward. I didn't feel like I was stumbling through the book. I felt like I was pulled along. So that category goes to Alias Hook. Next, we're going to talk about the characters. The characters of Alice were Alice and her roommate in the insane asylum named Hatcher, which I think is supposed to be the Mad Hatter, but it's kind of unclear, but he's pretty crazy, so I'm going to say he is supposed to be the Mad Hatter. Alice in this retelling is nothing like her original character in the classic. She seems very traumatized and very scared, unwilling to do everything. She's sort of pulled along by Hatcher. Little by little, she does find some strength, and she does grow a little bit, but she doesn't have that curiosity. She doesn't have that logical mind. She's a very different person than how she's portrayed in the original, which I didn't really care for a lot. I didn't really connect with Alice. Hatcher's a little bit more interesting. He's got a little bit more of a complete backstory, but again, I wasn't really sure who he was supposed to be. I'm pretty sure he was supposed to be the Mad Hatter, but again, not sure. The villains come in the form of what are essentially the bosses of gangs that own particular areas of the city that Alice has to traverse to get to the White Rabbit. We have the Caterpillar, we have the Walrus, and we have the Cheshire Cat. All three of these bosses, you could definitely tell who they were supposed to be. Cheshire was definitely my favorite. He was the most intriguing. Walrus had some pretty interesting stuff going on in his lair. Overall, they didn't seem that scary. Like I mentioned in my wrap-up for December, all the bosses just seemed to be scary because of rape. The rape was used over and over again to show how scary these bosses were and how bad the city was, and I just thought there wasn't a whole lot of thought that went into it, and it really was not pleasurable to keep reading about that again and again. The main villain is the Jabberwock, which we don't really know a whole lot about. He's kind of this shadow that may follow them, may be a part of Alice. We're not really sure. There's some magic involved, but again, we don't really know what's happening until the very end. I didn't find him frightening or scary, and yeah. In Alias Hook, we have 3 main characters. We have of course, Captain Hook. We have Parrish, a young lady who dreams herself into Neverland and teams up with Captain Hook. We have Peter Pan, who is the villain. Captain Hook was a very surprising character. I thought it was very interesting when we got to see what he was feeling, what he thought of the whole situation, how he perceived the whole of Neverland, and the fact that he had to keep fighting this little flying boy for eternity. How he was portrayed in this new book seemed to fit with the original, which I really appreciated. And the depth of his character was really surprising. I was not expecting that at all. Parrish, who is sort of his teammate, she has this special connection to Neverland, and we don't really know what it is, but she seems to be able to talk to the fairies and the mermaids and the Indians. They all seem to be on her side and pushing her forward. She may have some magic, she may be a witch, we don't really know, but the fact that she could maneuver around Neverland so well and get us close to the fairies and learn about the fairies and get us close to the mer people and let us learn about the mer people and what they're doing was one of my very favorite parts of the book. I didn't like reading about Parrish as much as I liked reading about Captain Hook, but her whole journey was definitely one of my favorite parts. And of course, Peter Pan, the villain, I sort of thought they would twist him a little bit, like make him, you know, doing animal sacrifices in the woods or like killing the lost children or something like that. He acts exactly the same way that he acts in the original story, but we're seeing it through Captain Hook's eyes. We're seeing it through an adult's eyes who's seeing how much havoc he's wreaking on Neverland, how unfair he's being to the mermaids and the Indians and the fairies, holding them hostage, holding them all hostage. Every character, every person we found out about, I was just blown away by, and I thought went so well with the original story, yet it added a whole lot more, a new deeper level that made me enjoy Peter Pan even more. I'm excited to reread the original. So the winner for the characters definitely goes to Alias Hook. Next we have the setting. So the setting of Alice is a town called Old Town. It's very haphazardly put together. Again, it's run by all these bosses who have these huge mobs of soldiers that are just causing havoc. It's very bleak and dark. Everyone's poor and suffering and afraid, and victims everywhere, streets running with blood. It was definitely a very grim setting. If anything scared me about the book at all, it definitely would have been the setting, because it was very grim, there's a lot of oppression. The setting definitely did affect me and make me a little bit frightened and nervous, but there was very little magic in it. Cheshire's got some magic going on. I sort of thought of the city as the Queen of Hearts garden maze. It's a maze, but instead of there being rose bushes everywhere, there's just city walls and buildings that they have to figure out a way around. And the setting of Alias Hook was, of course, Neverland, which of course I love Neverland. It's a really great idea, but I can't really give Alias Hook credit for Neverland because that was created before. What I can give Alias Hook credit for is expounding upon Neverland, really exploring all of the coast, all of the seas, all of the fairy dells and secret Indian corners, all of that, which I really don't want to give away because exploring it along with the book was one of my favorite parts. That I can give it credit for, and that was really interesting and wonderful and made me really happy, and I liked it a lot. So for setting, the winner is Alias Hook. Alias Hook. Next, you guys, we're going to talk about the tone of the book. The tone of Alice was definitely very oppressive, very grim, dark, no colors going on at all. If this book was made into a movie, it would definitely be done in sepia. There's no happiness or joy or color at all. So as far as tone goes, that's very good for a horror book. However, it wasn't really very scary to me, so it was just oppressive. Alias Hook has a tone that's very light and whimsical, and there's a lot of longing going on. There's a lot of desire and frustration, but a lot of magic. There's just magic and color, and I felt like while reading this book, I could almost see the wind blowing through the trees. It was just the best. I once again have to give it to Alias Hook. It was much more enjoyable and less forced. it just seemed to kind of flow. Finally, you guys, we're going to talk about the conclusion. Now, the conclusion of Alias. Obviously, I don't want to give anything away, but the conclusion left me kind of scratching my head. I wasn't exactly sure what happened or why or where in the world that came from. It seemed like the writer kind of got to the end of the story and was like, well, now what? Oh, okay. We're just going to throw this in here. The ending didn't really make a whole lot of sense. She was trying to do something. I think I know what she was trying to do, but it didn't quite work out very well. Next, the conclusion of Alias Hook. The Alias Hook has a very satisfying conclusion that ties up all the loose ends. Not only does the conclusion make sense and make me feel happy, but there's also a big metaphorical conclusion and a lesson learned and those sorts of things that you know I love. So once again, I have to give the star to Alias Hook. So out of the 5 stars, I gave all 5 to Alias Hook. Alright you guys, that is it for my first battle of the books. It was a slaughter. Let me know if you guys enjoy this kind of video. I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you had fun watching it. If you have any ideas for what books should face off next, definitely let me know in the comments. I may just pick one of those. This is going to be a monthly video series, so even if you suggest books I have not read yet, I will have plenty of time to read them and do a video. So go ahead and suggest your hearts away, and I will see you guys very soon.